A reading from the Gospel of Mark. Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting, and people came to Jesus and said to him, "Why do John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus said to them, "The wedding guests cannot fast while the bridegroom is with them, can they? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and they will fast on that day. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth onto an old cloak. Otherwise, the patch pulls away from it, and the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is lost. And so are the skins. But one puts new wine into fresh wineskins." It is in this passage in Mark that we learn that there were, not only was John the Baptist here to herald and pronounce Jesus' coming, but he had his own set of disciples. He had his own set of followers. So we get a little hint, a little taste that there's these two sets of followers happening. Jesus has his disciples and John has his disciples, and it alludes to some almost competition between the Baptists, perhaps, and the Christians, those who are following John and those who are following Jesus. And they both are engaged in different behaviors. John's disciples and their practice really herald back to the tradition, to a very pious Jewish tradition of not just fasting on the commanded days, but fasting for other reasons and on other days for their own piety. And Jesus's disciples weren't doing that. And that's drawing attention to the conflict in what the people are seeing at that time. I think, in all honesty, it's no different than what we have today. We have so many different iterations of what it means to be Christian. And as many of you know, I recently returned from my Army training as an Army chaplain, in which I was in a room with 77 other chaplains, the majority of whom are Christian, and most of us came from very different backgrounds. We had chaplains who were Catholic, we had Catholic priests, there were 2 Episcopalians there, ranging the gamut, Baptist and other fundamentalist practices. And we all, most of us as Christians at least, profess a very similar belief, but the way that we lived out our beliefs was very different. And the cool thing is there room for all of that in God's kingdom? Any of these practices hopefully are drawing us into a deeper relationship with God, a deeper understanding of what it means to be a follower of Jesus, and then holds us accountable to live our lives in accordance to how we understand Jesus's life and how we understand our call as Christians. It's okay for something to look different. It's okay for somebody to have a different practice than us as Episcopalians. And hopefully they are just as respectful of our practices. Whatever practices that you are engaged in, my hope and my prayer is that through those practices, that you are learning more and more about the nature of God, that you are learning more and more about how God created the world, created people, and increasing our respect for one another and for the world that we live in. And then again, as I said, holding us accountable to striving to be better, striving to be more like Jesus. It's okay that it looks different, as long as at the end of the day, it's drawing us closer and closer to Christ. Amen.